Welcome back, Spurs fans, to the Scott Hepler Football Channel. Today we're going to go through our predicted ponderings, and we're going to ponder upon the lineup for the Leeds United Tottenham match coming up on Saturday the 8th. And this one's going to be what I think Spurs should put out there, not necessarily what I think Mason's going to do. Because at this point, I still don't have a clue what Mason's doing, why he's picking, and who he's picking to be in certain positions. Case in point, why did Deli start not Ndombele? I mean, if you're going to run that formation, Ndombele needs to be in there, in my opinion. But we're just going to go through what I think. There's two formations that I think we could use. I'm going to start off with my preferred formation. Before we get into that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I would appreciate it, and I'd love you to support the channel. It allows me to continue to devote time and effort, and just helps the channel out a lot. I appreciate it. And if you have questions or comments or have thoughts that you want to put down or let me know about, put it down in the comments section as we go through this video. And next, if you enjoy this video, hit that like button. You know, it's right there. Just hit it. All right. So I'm thinking we need to start off with a 4-4-2 and do a midfield diamond. That's my preferred formation. In goal, obviously, we're going to go with Lloris. Out on the left outside, we're going to play Reguilon. Don't have a lot of options out there. If Davies was healthy, I would at this point almost put Davies in there, because while Reguilon had a decent match against Sheffield United, they also didn't provide much attacking prowess. That's not going to be the same with the Leeds United. And at this point, Davies is a more solid defender. Again, we lose something going forward, obviously, but I think we should have a solid back four. And we'll talk about that more as we go through this. In the center of the defense, I think we should be using a Rodin out of Toby center back pairing. They have proven that they are the best two center backs we have. They are the smartest two center backs we have. They don't get beat positionally very often, and it's our team cohesiveness is much better with them there than either Dyer or Sanchez. We could always argue to have Jaffet in that mix, but the reason why I don't have him in that mix is because I'm wanting him out on the right outside back, as a right outside back in the defense over Aurier. Again, a much better defender than Aurier. He's solid. He's played against top talent. He shut down Man City's wingers in the first match against Man City back in November that we won. He's going to be our best defensive option back there. And again, I know we lose a little bit going forward, but he can do the job back there and make sure that we're not going to concede goals. With that back four, I think we have an option. We have a good chance of pitching a shutout. If you start sliding in Sanchez, Dyer, or Aurier into any one of those positions, I feel like we're going to give up a goal, either through penalty, conceded penalty, just checking out, poor positioning. I mean, you name it. Those three in matches have continuous issues, and it's not just one or two. Last match, case in point, Dyer in the first 5 to 6 minutes made a pass to their center forward at the half line. They had an opportunity to go up 1-0. For their lack of ability, they didn't score. It wasn't something that we did that stopped them. Their lack of offensive ability kept them from scoring with that gimme that Dyer just handed to their forward. So we can't have that against a team that's going to be more clinical offensively. And that is what Leeds is. They're a much more clinical team when they're going forward. And they put that pressure on. So I think we can't have those other defenders in there. Let me know what you think the back line should be. In the midfield, again, we're doing a diamond. I think on the outside, we should have Song. Put Song out there on the outside. He had a good match against Sheffield. He looks like he's getting his legs back under him. He looked fatigued for about a month and a half there for a while. He was still out there working hard, contributing here and there, but not at the level that we expect of Song. So Song's out on the left midfield position. In the holding position, of course, it's going to be Hepler. And he's going to float across the entire width of the pitch in front of that front four. And that allows the front three midfielders to push in. And it's basically you're looking at 5 to 6 offensive players that way. And that's without even pushing up our wing backs or our backs. And that way, the pivot's going to be, between the midfielders, outside midfielders, and the cam position. So Højbjerg's in that spot. On the right outside right outside midfield, I think it should be Mora. He played well in the midfield in a number of matches. He will track back. He'll help out getting back, and he provides that dangerous threat through the midfield. Also, what can happen with a lot of these positionings that I'm setting up here is there's a lot of interchangeability that can happen between the central midfielder, the outside midfielders, and even the forwards. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here as we get into those positions. So that's who I think should be there is Mora. You can also argue Lo Celso, Lamela, Abel, something like that. But for my purposes and the way I'm setting this team up, I think it should be Mora. In that central forward position, I think it should be Ndombele. I know I typically say that Ndombele plays better in a role that's a little farther back, but if he's not required to be tracking back, I think that'll allow him not to worry about getting back so much and won't fatigue him. Plus, with this setup that I have in the diamond formation between Son and Ndombele, Mora, they can actually interchange within that midfield, and it'll allow them to confuse the defense a little bit and those people that are trying to mark them, and they're not just stuck in that position. So there's a lot of fluidity available within that. In the front two, we're going to go with Kane on one side, and obviously, probably the best player on the team, arguably. Why don't you put him in there? I know he wasn't as good as he usually is against Sheffield, but hey, everyone deserves to have a break. And he wasn't terrible. He just wasn't Kane. Part of it is we expect this lofty play out of Kane every match. And it's, when he doesn't deliver, and it wasn't a botched match either for him, everyone's like, oh, what's wrong with Kane? Well, you know what? He just didn't have his best match this time. And then partnered with him up there with Bell. And I think we need Bell up there. We need Bell on the pitch, period, to provide a lot of quality on the pitch. And, Vinicius has been up there once or twice with with Kane. Vinicius just does not have the quality that Bell does. And Bell and Kane are not up there per se to be hold-up players. They can be very interchangeable with those players behind them, like Son, Ndombele, and Mora. So they can drop back, they can hit those nice long balls through the defensive line and such, and allow the players to run onto them, like your Son or Mora. And this just allows a lot of ability for these players to interchange. The defensive people can't mark them and just be like, I know where this guy is and I know where he's going. This allows Kane and Bell to drop in and out as they see necessary. Allows them to fill voids and just make it very difficult on those defenders and the midfielders. So That's who I think should be starting. That provides a decent bench for us if we need it. You could, like I said, you can argue more could be switched out for a number of other players. I know Bale does not like to be forward in formations up front. He likes to be out on that wing. But this is just a point where Mason's got to make him understand this is what's best for the team. This also saves Bell's legs. He's not having to track back as much. He's not having to cover defensively as much. This provides us to get the most out of Bell at what he is best at, and that's providing quality up front, giving us opportunities, making those passes, driving at the opposition, not having to worry about getting back quite as much. It'll save his legs for the match. The other option I have for this is a 4-3-3, where the midfield, you have your two midfielders advanced and then one holding midfielder. Instead of running a pivot like we usually do in a 4-2-3-1, right in front of the defensive line, the pivot's going to be moved forward, and the pivot's going to operate right behind the forwards. And so the way I think this should look is pretty much the same lineup, with the exception of how people are positioned. So still the same players. You could argue that, maybe instead of Mora, Lo Celso might be better in the middle with that position. But, what this does, it allows us to have 5 attacking players going forward all the time. And again, Højbjerg's just kind of floating in front of that back line the entire time. And then Ndombele or Mora, in this case, they pivot as necessary to help back. And again, this is another thing that will allow Ndombele to be engaged in the link-up play and the offensive play without having him to track back every single time and help out with the defense. Him and Moore can take turns depending on the situation as to who's getting back. And this, I think, also gives us an opportunity to provide more of a press against the opposition and keep the ball forward more instead of allowing them just to come at us, and as we often do, especially in a 4-2-3-1. As soon as we give up the ball, the first thing we're doing is dropping back 6 players at least into a defensive set. Well, this allows us to keep a higher press and make it more difficult for them to get out of that press, in my opinion. But hey, I could be wrong. So, I think that we have a good opportunity here, whether we go through with either formation. Again, the 4-2 or the 4-4-2 diamond in the middle is my preferred one. But I think we can come out of this with a victory. If we go with these lineups with this strong defense, focusing on having a strong defense in the back 4, I think we can pitch a shutout, and I think we'll go 3-0. Now, if Mason changes any part of that defense, it's out the window. What's going to happen? I think we could give up anywhere from 0 to 5 goals if you start injecting Dyer, Sanchez, Aurier into this equation. So I think we can win this match. Whether it happens or not, I think it's going to have a lot to do with how Mason sets this team up. And does he play his favorites, his buddies that he went through the academy with, or does he play the players that actually give us the best opportunity to defend and also attack? And that's what I think this lineup and these formations do for us. But, 4 matches to go. After this, we have Wolverhampton, Aston Villa, and Leicester. And I personally think all of them are winnable, with the exception of maybe Leicester. That can be debated. We'll see how we go after these first 3 matches before we get to the final match against Leicester, before we can pass judgment truly on whether that's a winnable match or not. But if we don't show up against these 3 and get a W, there's not really, in my opinion, any way we're going to beat Leicester, because they're going to have stuff to play for still. They don't want to get out of that top three, because there's still opportunities for only the top three to make it into Champions League, and that fourth spot may not make it, depending on how the Arsenal matches go with in the Europa League, and then Chelsea won, so they're in the final. So, that there's spots that could be snagged away in that top four, depending on who wins Europa League and Champions League. And so they're not wanting to get into that fourth spot. They're going to want to stay in three. And so they're going to be playing every match, even the last match against us. So let me know what you all think. Let me know what your lineup would be, or if you have any insight into what Mason's going to do, tell me what Mason's going to do, what you think Mason will do. But again, I think we can win, and come on, you Spurs.